Hi there again. Well, you find us this time with a bit of code to source, parse, and save weather forecasts. Now, let's take a step back. So we know that web is full of data sets on, we've looked at prices before, but individual weather stations, temperature readings, pressure readings, and so on and so forth, which is great. But there are occasions when you actually want to get a kind of weather forecast, an overview. The sort of thing that you get at the end of the news, for example. Tomorrow will be sunny and wet in the south and dry and cold in the north, and so on. And so I wrote a little script, a little program here to source this information for us. Now, the reason I use it is as background to it, that when I'm running in the mornings, I wanted to get a sense of what the forecast was going to be generally. Will I need a coat, will I need a jacket, and so on. And simply just knowing what the individual temperature was at a particular point wasn't much use to me. So this code would source from the BBC, from the Met Office at the time, from Met Group and so on, forecasts, which was of use to email it to me. As the code developed, I then thought, well, actually there's use in recording this information, so I had a database. I wrote a database table to store it in, because it's good to look back and say, well, how accurate are these forecasts? There's always some benefit in some analysis after the event, and therefore how accurate is their forecast and how much I trust it going forward. So the code itself is, I think it's fairly simple to understand. Hopefully this video should clear it up. So there we start off by importing the regular our regular friends in the library. So we've got Beautiful Soup, which we've seen before. There's OS to write the files, there's urllib2, there's regular expressions, and so on and so forth. There's more discussion about this in the blog post that is linked to the in the comments below. So we have two sources. So Met Group, they're UK-based weather forecasters, and the BBC. Again, we're going to pass in the BBC weather comments. Now, what we should find is that the two streams basically work in the same way. So we're going to define a URL to read, either the BBC or Met Group. We're going to pass the extract from that URL, so the HTML from there, into Beautiful Soup, as we've done many times before. And if you've not seen some other Beautiful Soup videos, they should appear either, I guess, in the video or also the link through my blog. We then need to go and find where the comments are, or the weather commentary is within the page. Now, we've got to see this little index 17th iteration, and in the BBC it's the first, so second, since it's 0 then 1. We then process this, and we have a little bit of housekeeping with the replacement strings. They're there just to clean the code up after we've extracted the information you want. There's some superfluous information around it. So, for example, for the BBC, we don't need to have today. And the comment says something like, today, warm and sunny in the south, cold and wet in the north. Well, we know what today's like. It's the first entry, so we remove today from there. If you want to leave it in, just remove this. And also for your entries or your website, you may have other stuff to do. So you could simply add more onto here with whatever you want to add onto here. Remove that, for example. So the workflow is that we pass in a string, pass in a URL, that information, the contents of that page is read, it passes to Beautiful Soup, we process it, clean up a little bit. We find or locate the information we want within that page. Now, of course, it may be that the underlying web page changes in the future. In fact, it's almost certain it will do, in which case you'll need to update some of this. So if you run this at some point in the future, I'm recording this in July 2012, don't be too alarmed if it doesn't work. Maybe you examine this section as one to update and amend. I then just define some strings to replace. Then from our extracted text, I just remove this information. So for each item in replacement strings, so 1 item, 2 items, 3 items, I'm just going to go and compile an expression just to remove those from it. And then finally, for the string BBC, I strip off and string.strip will remove white space from the start and end of the text. So we're just doing a little housekeeping on the data here. And finally, of course, then I save it out. I write off, or I write, I should say, the string to this text file here. Now, you'll notice that I've got some commented text here, try and accept, and I also have it, of course, for met group, try and accept. What this is doing is, as I mentioned before, I used to, well, actually, another version of this text, this script, I save these comments off rather than writing them out. So this section actually is the exception statement. The try will write it off the database first. And the purpose of that, again, is that day on day I don't need to say the text file out, but I'm more interested in recording the comments. If you wanted to, and if you have a database that you wish to record the comments in, then simply uncomment off this information. Go through that and do that on there. And then replace your database settings, so your string, your password, etc., etc. This is a very sort of simple and secure way of doing it, but it really is just for a local machine, so it's just throwing together code. As always, they're done as is, so feel free to enhance them, improve them. I'm sure you'll find many better ways of doing it. I've done it here, but I've just thrown this up here to give you some ideas, so hopefully that'll be used. One of the comments I've just threaded this, the most simple threading really, threading.thread. I've only got 2 entries here, so there's not a huge amount of time saving for doing it, but it's there again just to demonstrate some simple threading with 2 functions. Well, hopefully that should explain the code. In summary, we pass in the URL, I process beautiful soup, we locate the information within the extract. We then locate using a regular expression the actual text we want, so everything from tonight and so on and so forth up to UK. We then have a little replacement string here for housekeeping, of which every time this bit of code here, every time it finds a version of an item within our extract, we then just replace it with nothing. Essentially, we remove it. And then we remove any blank spacing before finally saving the code off. When we run it, and just to prove it doesn't work, nothing will appear here. But if I come down on screen, I have my C drive, and here's the BBC comment. Rain almost as always in the UK. I think you could probably say that at any point during the year. And the Met group actually has the advantage of having slightly more commentary with a broader range. So hopefully that explains what the code does. You'll find full code, copy this entire source code on my blog, which there'll be a link in the comments, also in the blog description. Feel free to drop me a line. There's comments on there, or you can email me. And I look forward to hearing from you. Take care.